Hello, everyone. This is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Shouse and Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series. Our webinars are held every Wednesday in 2018 at 12 p.m. and at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule for the rest of the year is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions. So if you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly with the information you will see on the last slide. And all of the recordings are underneath the archived webinar tab on our website, as well as on our YouTube channel. All right, and this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Shouse and Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and we help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our clients are domestic and foreign, defense contractors and civilian, and our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our service and upcoming events can be found on our website. This is also a list of our upcoming events, and like I said, you can find more information on our website about these. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is What If? GovCon Proposal Heresies, and our speaker today is David Stearman. You can learn more about his background on this slide here. And thank you, David, for joining us today, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marilee. And thank you, everyone, for joining in and listening, and I look forward to spending the next little bit of time with you. So the context for this webinar is all about the kinds of industry standards, best practices. Most government contractors follow those industry standards and best practices, whether they're from APMP or Shipley or some other source. They're the kinds of things we all think we know, but I'm going to challenge some of that today, and I'm going to invite you to open your minds and be willing to challenge. So next slide, please. So the question I start with is simply, what if? Next. What if what you think you know isn't really true? Like those industry standards and best practices. Next slide. So my question for you is going to be, are you willing to challenge orthodoxies? Next slide. So my first heresy I'm going to blow your mind with is that proposals don't win. I'm a proposal professional. I've been doing this for 20 years in the GovCon world. I do proposals all day long, every day. And I'm here to tell you, proposals don't win. I know that's shocking to hear. Next slide. So the good news is they don't lose either. Next slide. Usually. And I say usually because obviously there are circumstances in which your proposal can actually cause you to lose. For example, if you deliver it late or if it's non-compliant, that will cause you to lose. But usually, proposals neither win nor lose. Next slide. Next slide. So what do I mean by this? Well, the proposal is just an artifact. It's a document. It's the tangible description of an offer. Next slide. What's the offer? Well, the offer is technical, pricing, past performance, management, key personnel. It's all of those things, but it's based on a strategy. In theory and ideally, you will have a strategy for winning that you then implement in your offer. Next slide. And winning or losing is based primarily on the strategy, not the artifact. If you have the right strategy, it's kind of like any competition. If you have the right strategy, generally speaking, you're going to be better suited to win than if you have the wrong strategy. And I'm here to tell you, if you have the wrong strategy, you may have a great proposal, but if you have the wrong strategy, your chances are not good. Next slide. So here's a easy way to visualize what I'm talking about. You start with your strategy, you generate an offer, and that offer is what generates the win or the loss. Next slide. So I have a new credo for you. Instead of thinking about proposals winning or losing, I say, let's RSVP to the win party. What do I mean by that? There are many ways to think about proposal strategy, many elements to that. It can get very complicated. I like to break things down to simple terms, easy to implement. RSVP, 4 elements. Next slide. First element is the R, that stands for relationships. Relationships with customers obviously are key. If you have a good relationship with the customer, they know you, you know them, you understand what they need and want, you're going to be in good shape. You also need to have good relationships with your teammates and partners, the companies that you work with. You need to have good relationships internally within your own company and within your own proposal team. If you don't, you're not going to function effectively and you're not going to come up with a winning strategy. All right, next slide. The S is solutions. And this is real important because the way I put it with my clients is, it doesn't matter if you make the world's best widget if your customer is buying bananas. You've got the wrong solution. It's a great solution, but it's the wrong solution. So the important thing in developing your strategy is having the right solution, having the right answer to what the customer is asking you for. Okay, next slide. Value. What this means is you have to offer something that the customer wants, needs, desires, has money and is willing to pay for, and ascribes some importance to. Again, this kind of goes back to the world's best widget. You know, if they're not looking for widgets, then there's no value of your widget to them. So you need to be offering something of value. The strategy needs to be based on offering value. Next slide. Finally, the P, and this one may surprise you, it's not about price, it's about proof. Meaning, you may make all kinds of claims about how good your widget is or how good your service is, and that's fine. That's what you need to do. You need to distinguish yourselves from the competition, so you need to be making bold claims about what you offer that somebody else doesn't. But you better be able to back it up. The last thing a proposal evaluator wants to see is a grand claim with no substantiation. They will not trust you. And in fact, not only will that affect how they assess that claim, it will affect how they assess every claim throughout your entire proposal. That lack of trust will kill you. And so you need to provide proof. That could be past performance. It could be data that backs up what you're saying. It could be a customer testimonial or a CPAR quotation. It could be anything that's tangible evidence that you can do what you say you will do. So if you say you're going to provide the world's best widget, you better be able to prove how it's the world's best widget or service. Next slide. So if you have those 4 things, you will be well on the way to having your win party. There's all kinds of other things that go into proposal strategy, but honestly, those 4 things, relationships, solutions, value, and proof, will take you a long way to success. All right, let's move on to the next heresy. Next slide. The next heresy is that Pwin stinks. If you're not familiar with Pwin, that's a jargon word, I understand. It means probability of win, and many companies use that concept to make decisions about which opportunities to pursue and which ones not to pursue, what to bid, what to not bid. They ascribe a number that they call Pwin, or probability of win. The heresy is that really it's not a good thing to use. Next slide. The reason is because it's neither objective nor truly predictive. In most cases, Pwin isn't doing what we think it's doing. Next slide. Next slide. So what Pwin is not really a number that somebody's put some mathematical effort into determining. It's a judgment. In the vast majority of cases, it's usually one person's judgment about how likely we are to win or lose a particular opportunity. And it may or may not be particularly well informed. I mean, honestly, sometimes it's just somebody sticks their finger in the wind and makes a judgment call. Sometimes there's more information behind it, but even that we have to question, because if it's only one person's information, it's only one data point. And you can't really generate something like Pwin through a single data point. Next slide. So in particular, Pwin is not objective. It's not typically data-based. It's definitely not predictive. You can retrospectively look back historically on the various proposals that you've submitted over the past X number of months or years or what have you, and you can calculate the percentage that won against the number that you submitted. And that gives you a real number. It's real data, and it tells you what your win rate is. Of course, that's only one metric in and of itself. It's not the be-all and the end-all metric either. But the point is that retrospectively, we can collect that data and come up with a number. But prospectively, looking forward, predictively, we can't really do that. Honestly, if anybody were that good at predicting anything, we'd all have won the lottery by now. But none of us can really predict things. We can't predict the lottery. We can't predict the stock market. We can't predict the Super Bowl or anything else. We can make guesses, judgments, etc. They may be more or less informed, but they're not really predictive. Next slide. So my new credo regarding how you make judgments about what to pursue or not pursue is simply honesty and transparency. Next slide. So if you need to use Pwin, if you feel like you can't let go of it, think of it as one piece of a very large jigsaw puzzle. There are a lot of pieces there, and you're not going to see the whole picture until you put all the pieces into place. If you are relying solely or even primarily on Pwin, you are not seeing the whole picture. Making judgments about what to pursue and not to pursue is nuanced. It's difficult, it's complicated, it's messy, and it's not exact. So don't use Pwin as the single measure, and in particular, do not use Pwin to incentivize the BD and capture people. What I mean by that is in many cases, in many companies, they set a threshold for we pursue opportunities with a Pwin above X%, and we do not pursue opportunities below that threshold. So they set that threshold, and it's usually an arbitrary threshold. And what that does is it incentivizes the people who are responsible for those opportunities in the BD and capture phase to arbitrarily set the Pwin for that opportunity above that threshold. Because the more opportunities they have in their pipeline, the more well evaluated they'll be at the end of the year. So we're giving them artificial measures and artificial means that are the basis for their personnel evaluations. So we're incentivizing them to artificially inflate Pwin. That's the other reason why it's not a real number. So the new credo is let's be honest, let's be transparent. Let's be clear about what the realities are and recognize that's not going to be easy, it's not going to be simple, and it's not always going to be obvious. All right, next slide. Third heresy, no bid is a way to help you grow. Again, this sounds counterintuitive, I get it. How do I grow if I'm not bidding? Next slide. The reality is those two words may be the most important two words in your vocabulary as you think about growth. Let's talk about why. Next slide. Next. So bidding more doesn't necessarily mean winning more. Recognize that bidding more requires more resources, more time, more money, more people. Next slide. And there's a tipping point. So at some point, if you're bidding more and more and more and more, your success rate is going to go way down. You're going to win less and make less money when you're bidding too much. So what's the new credo? Next slide. The new credo is to ask the right questions as you're considering what to go after and what not to go after. And what are those questions? Well, there's a lot of questions that you can think about and consider. And again, it can get very complicated. Again, I like to break things down into simpler terms and easy schemes. Not to suggest that any of this is truly easy, it's not, but I want to make it easy for you to implement the ideas. So the first question, next slide, is can we do it? So when you're considering an opportunity, you need to ask yourselves, can we do this work? Can we make this widget? Can we provide this service? Whatever it is, the key question is, can we do that? Do we have the capability? Do we have the expertise? Do we have the skill set? There's a lot of questions underneath the can we do it question. Like I said, it gets complicated. But the basic question is, can we do it? And it should be obvious, if you can't do it, you shouldn't be considering going after it. But I'll get to that a little bit more in a minute. Next slide. Second question is, can we win? Is this an opportunity where we can really be competitive and have a chance to win? And you need to be honest with yourselves about this. Again, there are a lot of sub-questions that go under this. There are things like, what does the competition look like? Do we have a good pricing strategy? Do we understand the customer well enough to know what to offer them, et cetera, et cetera. It also may include questions like, do we have the bandwidth internally? You know, we're working on 12 other things right now. Can we add this 13th thing, or is that going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back? If it is, then maybe we don't bid this. Or if we're definitely committed to bidding this, then we need to take one of those other 12 things off the plate. All of those are sub-questions to the basic question of, can we win it? Next slide. And the third question, can we make money doing this? Right? Maybe I know I can do it, and I'm fairly sure I can win, but if doing so means I have to price it so low that I can't make a profit, am I really sure about that? Can I make money doing this? Is the scope of the project clear enough so that I can price it effectively and reduce that price financial risk to myself? I might be able to price it effectively and think I'm going to make a profit, and then I start executing and there are a lot of other costs that I didn't anticipate, and now it's eating up all my profit. So I need to ask myself, and again, be honest, can I make money? There's a really simple visual scheme to understand this concept and how these three questions play that will remind you all of middle school. Next slide. The old Venn diagram. Everybody remember this? The interlocking circles? So those are your three questions. Anything that falls into only one circle probably, almost certainly, you don't want to pursue. Things that fall into an area where 2 of the 3 circles overlap might be considered a maybe, but again, you need to be very clear-eyed about why you would be going after something. If you can do it and you can win it, but you can't make money, why would you do that? There might be reasons to do that. I never say never, but you have to ask yourselves those questions and be clear about it. Or if you can do it and you can make money, but you can't win it, then why are you spending time, money, resources, people going after it if you really don't think you have a good chance of winning it? That seems like a waste to me. But again, you may have good reasons for doing that. Obviously, anything that falls into that middle area, what I call the sweet spot, where all 3 circles overlap, that looks like a good opportunity. Okay? So that's how you can use that schema. All right, one more heresy and then we'll be done. Next slide. Writing is fungible. Everybody thinks that proposal writing is the key to every proposal. And I'm here to tell you the dirty little secret of proposal development is that writing actually isn't the most important thing. Next slide. And next. So really, Parkinson's law, a version of Parkinson's law applies in this context. Next slide. Writing will actually expand or contract to fill the available time. And what's the visual for that? Next slide. It's like an accordion. You can expand or contract the writing time based on how much is available, but there are certain things you can't expand or contract. And I'm going to talk about those now. Next slide. So the new credo is to make time for what matters. Next slide. Prior planning prevents poor performance. Those of you who have any experience with the military, particularly the Army, will recognize that saying. They have an extra P in there. Before you write, you need to plan. Because if you just start writing with no plan at all, you're going to end up with something that's not very good. And it's going to actually take you longer in the long run if you don't have a plan. Prior planning prevents poor performance. Next slide. The other thing is that quality really matters. So you need to stop writing at some point so you can do some QC before you submit your proposal, right? Because you want to be able to check, make sure you don't have any obvious typos and things like that sort of thing. But you want to make sure your proposal is putting your best foot forward, because even though it is only an artifact, it is that first impression that evaluators will get. So you want it to look good, you want it to read well, you want to avoid obvious mistakes like typos and misspellings and bad grammar and things like that. So that planning at the beginning and the QC at the end, you really can't compress. You need to give those the time they need, and then the time that's left over in the middle, believe me, you will be able to write your proposal however much or however little time there is. Next slide. So I started with what if, right? What if what you think is true isn't? Next slide. So which truths are you willing to question? Next slide. Which assumptions are you willing to challenge? Next slide. And which heresies and new credos are you willing to consider? I want to leave you with the thought that it's less important to remember the details of the specific heresies and credos here than to keep an open mind about everything you think you know is true in the proposal world. Be willing to question it, challenge it. That will make you get better. And in this competitive environment, getting better is the name of the game. So, thank you. I hope that's been helpful. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them. You see my contact information there. Please do follow up with me. I'd love to hear from people and get feedback. Let me know if this was helpful to you, or if you want to challenge me I'm definitely open to that. I'm willing to be wrong.
Yeah, thank you, David, for joining us today, and thank you everybody else who joined us. And again, like he said, if you have any questions, please contact him with the information you see on your screen. Next week, we are covering 8 ways to monetize your GSA schedule, and at 12:30, we are covering the fundamentals of federal bid protest. So this concludes our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallory.